I was really excited to come home to Kentucky and spend my career here. I live in Frankfort. It's a beautiful capital city. As soon as you start to get outside the confines, there's just rolling hills. You got horse farms all around here. Lots of beautiful rivers, scenery, all across the state. So it's beautiful, but the most beautiful thing to me in Kentucky is everything is underneath all of that.
Do you want to go down into the pit? Come on.
Welcome in. How are y'all today? Did you guys want some more drinks?
Nick works at the Kentucky Heritage Council and also does projects related to the history of bourbon.
My name is Nicolas Laracuente. I'm the bourbon archaeologist. Bourbon's amazing because of there's multiple layers. Lots of people like the authenticity, the high quality of the product, but there's also deep history.
I'm pretty sure that it's an internet fact that we have more barrels of bourbon than people in Kentucky. So when you come in, you're talking about bourbon, man, there's more history about Kentucky on this shelf than there is in any book you're gonna find on a shelf. And it tastes better than any book I've ever had, guys.
So when I came to Kentucky as a professional archaeologist, I found that they do archaeology more or less in private. So what I brought with me from the University of West Florida was the concept of public archaeology. We're heading to the Jewett Distillery site, which means that we gotta hike through the woods along the stone fence here in the middle of Woodford County. I came into bourbon archaeology a little by accident. I came up here and I realized that the Bourbon Trail and all of these defunct distilleries at the time, they have layers of history that archaeologists weren't looking at. I knew that since distilleries intersect so many aspects of human society, that I would be able to dedicate the rest of my career to just looking at distilleries. So part of what we do here is a big puzzle trying to figure out who was here, what they were doing.
There was a moment in time that Nick had a vision about telling the story of bourbon using his skills as an archaeologist, right when the world was really discovering bourbon again.
I think you could say my bourbon archaeology career really took off when I started the Jack Jewett Archaeology Project to look at the long-forgotten distillery of a Revolutionary War hero. You see how it's filling up with water? We think it's a spring house, a place where people kept things cold, but we're not sure yet. One thing led to another, and the next thing I know, Buffalo Trace is calling me.
You know, I heard a little story today, and apparently over at Buffalo Trace, they were doing some renovations and they uncovered Colonel E.H. Taylor's original fermentation area.
As time it keeps ticking, there's another story told.
So we did an excavation of this whole storage room that had never really been looked at before, and we found 2 different foundations of old distilleries that had been buried and forgotten about.
We cut into these, it just dropped into a little void.
But we also found these fermenting vats from a later stage.
Well, time it keeps ticking, there's another story told.
As we were digging down in the vats, that's when we started finding the scraps of copper and cooler artifacts. This is an incredible find.
So we ended up turning it into an indoor museum. Catwalks over this large pit where you could look down and see these foundations in a place that we're calling Bourbon Pompeii.
Then we did it for the stories we could tell. Then we did it for the stories we could tell.
Last but not least, this is the cool part here. This is the fermenting vat, vat 7, that they decided to reactivate, right? And start distilling a bourbon that has not been seen since about 150 years ago.
We've been able to recreate even down to the specific strain of yeast that was last in contact with these copper artifacts we excavated.
And then it'll be put into a charred white oak barrel, hang out in a warehouse for about 8 more years. And then we'll have to raise a toast to archaeology, preservation, and bourbon.
In Kentucky, if you're known in the bourbon world, you are a rock star.
Guys, this is Nick. This is the bourbon archaeologist, man. We don't get a lot of celebrities other than me, okay?
Nick's a character, and everyone knows Nick as the guy who's telling the story of bourbon.